Pleasant good afternoon to you from the KXAN Live studios. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Horns Report, and I'm your host, Billy Gates. And today, we're going to talk about the men's basketball game against Houston tonight. Big game over at Moody Center, and then we'll get to some football stuff here. But first things first, let me bring in our guest, the one and only Roger Wallace, KXAN Sports Director. And Roger, like I said, there's a big ball game tonight. UT takes on number 4 Houston. UT's in the middle of playing 6 straight ranked opponents. This will be
basically they're playing Big 12.
Yeah, they're playing the Big 12. They're this will be number 4 in a row ranked opponents, and it's just this Big 12 is just nasty.
Yeah, you get those wins over Baylor and Oklahoma, feeling good. You go out to BYU and you're looking at some of the highlights there, and it was just a frustrating game because they kind of hung around but never really made a great push in the second half to win that game. Tough place to play, really good offensive team. But again, when you're sitting where Texas is, these are the kind of wins they have. You know, Joe Lunardi of ESPN still has them not only in the field of 68, but they've got him with a first-round bye, the third, I think, of 4 teams of his last 4 first-round byes. And that's strictly based on these games that they're playing, the strength of schedule. And you win out in Oklahoma. Somehow OU's still in the top 25. Despite back-to-back home losses. But, yeah, tonight obviously would be monumental if they can knock off the number 4 team in the nation in Houston.
Yeah, so they beat Baylor, they beat Oklahoma, and then lost to BYU. Those have been their ranked games here consecutively. Houston, number 4 in the nation, stayed there in the AP poll that just came out today, 18-2, 5-2. They're winners of 4 straight. After losing by a point on the road to TCU, they hammered Texas Tech at home. Hammered UCF at home, got by BYU on the road in Provo. Like as Texas fans saw, that place is insane.
Yeah, it's a good atmosphere, and yeah. So Texas was playing a BYU team that was coming off a home loss to Houston. Houston caught UCF. Not saying UCF is going to give them a game in Houston, but caught them on the back end of coming to Austin and beating Texas, and then had to go to Houston and got slapped around pretty good. But I mean. You just think of Houston, you think this is going to be a rough and tumble game tonight, and it's going to be physical, and they rebound it, and that's an area where Texas has struggled, teams that are great offensive rebounding teams. But mostly you think of Kelvin Sampson's team, you just think they are really tough. So I think if you're inside of that locker room with Rodney Terry tonight at about 7 o'clock, the first message is we've got to match their toughness, and I'm sure they're hoping that Moody can help them out as well. And Jamal Shedd gets to come home, the main product, outstanding point guard for U of H. So this should be really interesting tonight if Texas can bounce back. You know, you play out in Utah on Saturday afternoon, long flight back. So they're back at a decent hour, but still only one day to get ready, really, for a Houston team that hammered K-State. I think they're up 11-0 at home. So they were well rested on Saturday and Sunday to come up here. And I'm sure for U of H, this is the final of the new 4 that Texas will play for the first time. They'll have to play at Houston. You know how they feel about, I'm sure, coming to Austin. So it should be an interesting matchup tonight.
Yeah, and you mentioned K-State. Houston beat them 74-52, and that's no easy feat, even if it's in Houston. Nobody beats K-State by over 20 points.
And they did it right out of the gates, Billy. So it wasn't like they pulled away. They established it, and K-State made some runs, but that was kind of what it was.
You mentioned Jamal Shedd from Manor. He's one of the top 10 finalists for the Bob Cousy Award given to the nation's best point guard. So he's quite the player. Their guard play with L.J. Cryer, the transfer from Baylor. He's leading the team in scoring about 15 a game. You throw Emmanuel Sharp in there as well, and that's just a 3-headed monster on the perimeter.
Yeah, and Cryer, it stings to lose players, but, for Scott Drew to lose a guy what turned out to be in the conference with U of H. Of course, they had their great run, so you understand players want to change. But the backcourt's going to be tested. A guy like Max Asimus, he's going to defend tough guys. I mean, Shedd's only 6'1", but he just feels like a grown man out there. And there's Texas playing Houston football.
There we go. We'll get to that in a second.
That was a tough ball game too.
We'll get to that one in a second.
But yeah, this will be one of those tests where I think they're beatable, especially here. But they're going to have Dylan DeSue. They're going to have to get some good minutes out of Caden Shedrick. I think the encouraging part is Kendall Weaver. it's hard for anybody to match his athleticism, and he has become a really good guy off the bench for Rodney Terry, giving him between 15 and 25 minutes, had that 15-point effort against BYU. But Tech's going to have to shoot the ball well, and then they're going to have to match the toughness of Houston tonight.
8 p.m., Moody Center. The game's going to be on ESPN. We were talking off camera. ESPN doesn't really brand it Big Monday anymore, but man, back in the day, that was the game to watch if you're going to watch any college basketball game during the week.
The Big East, and then the Big 12, and then it was the Big West, and that was with teams like UNLV or Santa Barbara had a run where they were really good, and that was a fun arena and places like that. So now there's so much on that, you know, they might say Big Monday, but like it's an ACC game tonight ahead of it, and then, you know, Super Tuesday was an SEC showcase, but it's pretty Big Monday for the Longhorns.
Yes, it is. 8 p.m. on ESPN. Now shifting gears to football, we'll see if the video comes up here. Hey, there we go. There's old Quinn Ewers. This is footage against Alabama. That is relevant because a lot of former Alabama players are now playing for Texas. Coming off of Nick Saban's sort of surprise retirement, maybe. Some would call it a surprise, I guess. No other team benefited from that better than Texas did. In the transfer portal, Texas, they've gotten 8 commitments so far, 3 of them from Alabama. I guess, you know, Roger, if you can't beat them, join them, right?
See, now you're talking about Alabama.
Yeah.
You know, a year ago you'd be talking about Texas, but you're right. And they were targeted players, and that's what Sark has said about the portal. You hope you have a good enough roster where you're just filling in some needs, and I think Texas certainly did that with Alabama, with the receiver Isaiah Bond, tight end Amari Niblack, and then you get a guy like Kendrick Blackshear, who may not start for Texas, but he'll play a lot of snaps at linebacker and give them some depth, and that's the other thing Sark talks about. So, yeah, I think those, you know, the receiving was outstanding what they did in the portal. I said Houston. I was thinking of Houston because that was the first portal receiver they got, and Matthew Golden. And Billy, as soon as I saw that he went into the portal, I thought Texas because he just felt like the right guy to do a lot of things of what Xavier Worthy has done for the Longhorns. And sure enough, I think it was a pretty quick recruitment. And then you had another receiver from Oregon State, Silas Bolden. So
go Beavs.
Yeah, you wonder about the young guys, Billy. I always wonder about the young receivers thinking, okay, we waited our turn, and now, you know, it's our turn. And I think John Tate Cook will get into the mix, but you wonder about some of the other guys, DeAndre Moore, and then, you know, freshman coming in, Ryan Wingo. You know, you expect him to be an immediate impact player, as highly touted as he is, but, you know, that's kind of the downside of the portal is the guys waiting their turn going, wait a minute, now I got to deal with more veterans again to try to earn some playing time.
Well, I mean, if we learned anything this year, it's that Sarkisian loves to rotate his players in and out. Right. So maybe, you know, especially what they did at safety this year, rotating, like 6 or 7 guys throughout the game. I mean, maybe he's trying to do that with the wideouts, maybe trying to breed some competition in there when it comes to conditioning and into spring ball and into fall camp. So I guess we'll just have to see how that shakes out. But, yeah, the receiving guys that they got, with Bolden and Golden, that's probably like coincidental there.
It's like a track team, too.
Yeah, it really is.
All those guys are burners. So
yeah,
you know, it's going to be interesting to see how that works. Does that change some of the things Sark does? Adonai Mitchell was that big, not only a possession receiver, but he could get over the top. But that big target, kind of a safety valve too, because he's a guy that Quinn Ewers could throw it up there and he could make Quinn look good, and sometimes Quinn made him look good. So we'll see if they have that guy as well. But all the guys that they got, they think they're going to play right away in some capacity, or at this point, there's no reason to go get these guys in the portal.
Right. With the 8 commitments from the portal for Texas, they're the number 7 transfer recruiting class. I know that's a weird thing to say, right?
We are, right?
24/7 Sports puts that together. Of about the top 15 or 16 schools, Texas has the least amount of recruits, but they're getting the most bang for their buck. Ohio State is ranked right behind Texas with 6 commitments. So I mean, they're also kind of getting the most out of a few. Ole Miss, so far anyway, your number 1 transfer recruiting class with 17 commitments. That's a bunch. However, Texas A&M has 23 transfer recruitment commitments from their number 2 in 24/7's kind of composite sort of ranking system.
Had to rebuild their
Right.
roster.
Yeah.
When Jimbo Fisher left. So
Yeah.
part of that. It's funny with Ole Miss and woe is me, Lane Kiffin about NIL. Well, you're not transferring in the portal unless there's some NIL things on the back end.
You've got some cash lined up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he talks a good game about that, but I think they're stepping up in Oxford for those guys, or they all just don't want to come there and be part of that culture with a little something else to go with it.
Yeah, they're just not going to the Grove just to have fun.
No, not in this day and age, man. It has totally changed how you look at recruiting.
Mm-hmm. Couple other news and notes about the football team. Kenny Baker, the new defensive line coach, he comes from the Miami Dolphins, so they went out and got a pro guy. He was an assistant defensive line coach for the Dolphins. He replaces Bo Davis, who went back to LSU, or not back. He went to his alma mater, LSU, and then Brandon Huppert, a defensive analyst, he was hired away from Oregon State. So there you go. Couple coaching moves here recently for the football team. Obviously, the Kenny Baker move replaces a big piece in Bo Davis.
Yeah, and everybody was scrambling to learn about Kenny Baker. I watched the midseason Hard Knocks with the Dolphins. Didn't see much of Kenny Baker on that. So, like most people, had to go and read up. But Sark, there's a reason Sark's hiring guys, and so I'm sure he's got full confidence this guy's gonna do a good job. And Bo Davis, he's always been a little restless, never staying in one place too long. The pull of LSU, the pull of money, the pull of his son being able to transfer there as well. So, and then Johnny Nansen comes in from Arizona to replace Jeff Choate, who's the new head coach at Nevada, and I think that led to another portal guy in Savea, the defensive tackle from Arizona, to give them a little more depth there. So, yeah, it looks like the staff is full. A lot of talk about Dwayne Aquina coming, and then he was able to stay at Arizona with the new staff there. So it looks like, for now, because then after spring, you got to figure it out. And a lot of these guys we were just talking about, they're going to go through spring practice and say, okay, is this still the place for me? And then it's that never ending of recruiting your own guys. Yeah.
This is wild. The transfer portal thing. It's just crazy. Your head spins trying to keep track of everything.
I don't think it's a coincidence about the Nick Saban retirement. A little bit about transfer portal in there now. I think Jim Harbaugh wanted to go to the NFL, but he doesn't have to deal with that. It used to be, the NFL, oh man, they're sleeping in their office, and that lifestyle is so brutal. And, somebody else is picking your team, so you don't feel like that. Or in college, you control it. Now it's kind of flipped.
Sure, yeah.
With that college coaching lifestyle, I mean, you've got to be ready to roll from jump. And if you take a break, I can't imagine your head's still not spinning on the beach or wherever you are.
Yeah, no doubt. So staying with football real quick, spring game, a little while away, April 20th is when they're going to play that. In the interim, there's another National Signing Day for folks that didn't sign during the early period. So I guess technically, this coming up is National Signing Day, but with the early period, a lot of kids decide to sign early so they can enroll in second semester, so they can participate in spring practices. And of the signees from the early period, almost all of them are in spring ball for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because that means they've got to finish up high school with a semester to go and grow up quickly and do all the things you have to do as a college student. But, it's almost like you better have a majority of your class somewhere near 40, 50% coming in early and, just to keep up. But, that second signing day, I remember when it almost felt like a holiday, and now it's an by the way, where you can fill in some gaps between the transfer portal and early signing period, and not even sure how many players they'll sign next Wednesday to round out that class, and then the spring practice, and then you said the spring game in late April. So here we go. It just seemed like we were unloading our bags from New Orleans, and now. Talking about spring practice and starting over again. No
kidding. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Again, men's basketball tonight against Houston, 8 p.m. Games on ESPN if you can't make it to Moody Center. That'll be it for this Horns Report. Thank you so much for watching. For Roger Wallace, I'm Billy Gates, and we'll talk to you again very soon.